Hi all, Joshua Stega here from etfadvisor.com.au, and today I'll do my usual weekly rundown of the Aussie ETF market and what investors should be looking at for the week ahead. The three things I'm going to cover off on today is I'm going to look at the general or broader markets globally and just give you a quick update, and obviously things look pretty bullish at the moment, so we'll just have a quick look there. Number two, I'm going to talk about crypto and that space and why I think that's it's coming back and it looks like one to really watch in the following couple of months. And number three, I'll just touch on energy again and why that's such a key theme going forward. So let's get started. We'll start today, as I said, we kind of want to look at the broader market. So the big kind of surprise this week for me was the Euro STOXX 50. So the European markets were starting to look really quite weak. So here you had the tariff correction. They bounced pretty hard, but then have done not a whole lot since then. So that's pretty much May, last couple of months, May to October. And then finally, just this week, it's kind of joined the party in a really strong move. It was really looking quite weak at these points. Obviously, it's held on and moved out. So now that's kind of joined the rest of the market. So obviously, you've got the S&P 500 US markets up at highs. All looks really constructive, very bullish. Nasdaq still at highs. Had that really strong trend in here. Another strong trend, only a bit of selling on Friday. So it's all pretty buoyant at the moment. But it was interesting to see the European market join the party. So it feels quite bullish at the moment. I mean, the weaker kind of market at the moment is India. So we've been talking about this. I still quite like India, but just having a look at this structure looks to me like it needs more time and feels like a 2026 story now. So that's probably the weakest market globally at the moment, because you're having a look at, new recent highs in Hong Kong. So that's really strong. Feels like, it's just getting started. Also, you've got China just right on the cusp of moving out. So obviously being quite constructive through here. Pretty exciting. That's a nice base. If we have a look on the monthly chart as well, you can kind of see it's just trying to work through that, the resistance. I'll pull up the monthly chart down the bottom here, but you can kind of see, that's a really nice base there as well. So a good structure from which to launch and certainly kind of move up around these 18,000 levels. So it's a pretty significant little move. So it's really, quite bullish. And, a couple of months back, obviously we were quite cautious. And one thing that we were really looking at was we're starting to get this weakness. So this is one of the indicators that we look at. So obviously this is the market down here, the S&P 500. And then we're looking at stocks, above the 200-day moving average, above the 50-day moving average, above the 20-day moving average. And you can see things like really started to downtrend. And then it's just in the last couple of weeks, we've had kind of a nice recovery through all these indicators. So it's all pretty strong at the moment. Obviously the key space to be watching is still those small caps in the US. So they, have been long underperformers, and they're up around this, nice kind of structure here. And is this all the rest that needs to start to push into new highs? I mean, that's something we're going to be watching. So that's, as I said, it's all pretty strong at the moment. You've also got the Aussie market into highs as well. So, that's felt like it was running out of steam here, but now, a good solid week. And obviously resources are pushing. There's some really key themes out there that we've got a good exposure to in the model portfolio. So definitely trend is your friend, and certainly ride it while it continues. So in the broader market, the other thing that we were looking at a couple months back was kind of the IGV was looking quite weak. So this is just an expanded tech software sector ETF, and we're kind of looking here that it topped out late July, had been quite weak, was looking quite weak here, and has recovered and pretty much back into, there was all-time highs, and actually looks like it's setting up here now as well. So things look really quite bullish at the moment. So we'll definitely continue to ride the trend, but just remember, always keep your eyes peeled for any signs of weakness, and things can change quite quickly in the market. But for the time being, it all looks pretty buoyant and pretty positive. So definitely keep riding those trends. The second thing I wanted to cover was Bitcoin or crypto in general. So what's been really interesting is the Crypto Innovators ETF. So what's really happened in the US? So the Crypto Innovators ETF holds like a lot of the companies that do Bitcoin mining and have the processing power and the data centers and things like that for all that space, and blockchain and whatnot. So this is actually into highs here, and that's if you look on that weekly chart, that's a really nice base there as well. So that's pushed out this week, held that 10-day moving average. So it's related to AI because the processing power that's required for Bitcoin mining is also in high demand now for AI applications. So that's helped push that. But also what was interesting is that finally, it was just last week we were saying to subscribers that Bitcoin and Ethereum needed to kind of hold these lows, and it had kind of tested these points a couple of times, held those lows, and had a really big week. And it's almost back into new all-time highs for Bitcoin. So that's really back on the radar now. We'll see how it acts around here, but it might only give us a short pullback and be away. But because the themes that are pushing, gold and silver and precious metals, also commodities, so that whole theme of inflation and mismanagement of the economy by the central banks kind of plays into the theme of Bitcoin as well as a kind of store of wealth. So I've kind of been surprised at the weakness. This was a big performer and very quickly out of that tariff correction. So it's had a good rest now, and definitely back on the radar. And obviously Ethereum's still been one of the top performing assets of this year as well. And that's also, we're saying to subscribers it needs to hold this low. It held the low, it's pushed out last week. And now, you're getting that nice kind of base. And we'll just see how it reacts at previous highs where it's kind of failed a couple of times. But that's a bull flag. And certainly if it pushes out of these levels, I think, they're really, really key ideas to be on the watch list and looking to add. So pretty exciting time, I think, for those crypto assets, just given how precious metals have moved and the kind of themes that are in play at the moment. I mean, just look at the US dollar continues to be incredibly weak. And it just feels like, we're cutting rates into high inflation environments. You've got stagflation likely in Australia. So, anything where you can protect your wealth. Obviously, we've seen, how well gold and silver, precious metals have done this year. I mean, incredible, and held this really long base and has just continued to move out. I mean, just look at that. 2025, incredible move already, and the year's not even done. So, I would think Bitcoin, as an example, here's 2025. There's the tariff correction, so it's kind of pushed out, held that base. Is it time for another run? It certainly looks like it's built the energy that it needs, and now we'll just see how many sellers appear at previous highs and how it reacts here. But certainly back on the key ideas list. We'll just see how it plays out over the next, who knows, it could be really quick. It might be just this week it sets and then away it goes. So I think that needs to be on the radar of everyone at the moment. And also just want to touch on energy again. So what's been interesting this week, we spoke a little bit about it last week, but natural gas is actually starting to look interesting here now as well. So we don't have an ETF to play natural gas, but it is as a clean energy source. I mean, it's really key, and that now looks like it's setting a bottom, and it's been quite a big underperformer over this year. And you would think, just in terms of sheer electricity demand. So here's a bit of a graph that pulled up. So this is power demand from AI data centers. So you're looking at by 2035, they're saying 4.4% of global electricity is going to be required or used by AI data centers. That means power demand for AI data centers is going to quadruple over the next 10 years. AI data centers would rank as the fourth largest user of electricity after China, the US, and India. So it's going to be huge. And this is, in terms of what energy is required, I mean, every level of energy is going to be required. I mean, certainly clean energy, solar and renewable energy is not going to be enough. You're going to need uranium, you're going to need your coal, you're going to need your gas, you're going to need all those traditional sources of energy, plus, solar, wind, whatever else you can get. So, just look at this. So if we're sitting here today and in 10 years' time, that's where we need to be. You can see that's, in terms of history, this is going to be an absolutely huge move just in terms of energy use. So, basically from where we are, we need to triple, and who knows, this might even be conservative. So it's really quite interesting that we also kind of seeing that with natural gas. We've also got the coal ETF in the US, and that looks like it's setting a bottom. So you can see on the weekly, a nice long base coming up into this resistance here, but that's really starting to trend now as well. So everything's on the table there in terms of energy, and I think obviously one of the key holdings in our model portfolio is the uranium ETF. So this is not just uranium stocks. This is also companies engaged in producing nuclear energy and whatever materials and equipment that go into that. So obviously that's been a huge performer this year as well, and it's setting up quite nicely for a continued move higher. So I think that needs to be a key space on everyone's watch list. It's almost been a little bit forgotten, but if you have a look at oil services, so we don't have this in Australia, but this is in the US, VanEck Oil Services, you can see that also is starting to trend here. It looked like it was going to push out here. It's come back and retested that 20-day moving average. So we'll just see how that plays out. Obviously, there's a lot of kind of overhead resistance, but that feels like a bit of a bottom in place. And it's only a couple of months ago that we were talking about clean, which is the VanEck Global Clean Energy ETF, and as a bottoming play, and that's worked incredibly well. So it's not dissimilar to that when we were talking about it here, and obviously had a really big week last week as well, but just shows you when the trend changed. It's just holding that 20-day, creeping, big day there. Pretty exciting, and feels like that's going to move a long way as well. If even to get up into previous highs there, you're going to get up into the 12. So it's still got a long way to go to where it was even a couple of years ago. So pretty exciting kind of space at the moment. We don't have this in Australia, but this is another indication. There's TAN in the US. This is solar stocks. We don't have a solar ETF in Australia, but look at that. Looks exactly like CLNE, not dissimilar to what we're seeing. Probably the early signs. I mean, feels like natural gas is maybe around here. It certainly hasn't pushed out, but look at that. Just trending, holding the 20, pushing. Feels like it can go a long way. So, I mean, look how far this has come back. I think, where's the high? The high there was 120, and it's at 50 at the moment. So, given the outlook for energy, you would say these have a long way to go, and they're just coming out of that stage one kind of breakout. So, pretty exciting. Energy is going to be a key idea. We've got a couple of ways to play that for subscribers, so something to keep an eye on this week as well. So just to summarize, markets look pretty hot at the moment, but just remember, things can change quite quickly. Ride the trend while it keeps going, but just be aware, don't get overconfident. Things can change quite quickly in the market, so that's obviously what we're keeping an eye on. As I said, point number 2, crypto back in focus. I think the same kind of fundamental reasons that are pushing precious metals will apply to the cryptocurrencies here. And as I said, that looks really interesting now for Bitcoin up around highs. See how it reacts here, but I think something we really need to consider for your portfolio, and also energy as well. So let's keep a close eye on energy. I mean, just look at these sheer amount of growth that's required in the energy to provide for, this is going to be AI, but what about robotics? What about all these other technologies that are coming on board? Energy going to be a really key theme going forward. So that's all this week, but I hope gives you a few ideas of what to watch, and I'll touch base again next week. Thanks for your time.